You're listening to The Vault, a Forum Communications podcast covering true crime and general intrigue in the upper Midwest. I'm Trisha Taurinskas. My story on the 1992 benzene oil spill of Duluth-Superior area can be found at inforum.com. Just look for the Vault section. Huddled in the basement with the companionship of family and my favorite stuffed animals, I attempted to grasp the reason we found ourselves there in the first place. A toxic cloud measuring 20 miles long and 5 miles wide had blanketed our community. The communities in and around the Duluth and Superior areas, located in northern Minnesota and Wisconsin, alongside Lake Superior, making the air outside dangerous to breathe. It was a lot to take in as a 6-year-old. The concept of dangerous air was, at that stage, terrifying, and for that reason, cemented a memory in my brain that still hangs around today. I lived in Hermantown at the time, a town just up the hill from Duluth. It wasn't in the evacuation zone, but it was close, just miles away. Certainly, I'm not the only one with memories of June 30th, 1992. When up to 50,000 residents of the Superior and Duluth area were evacuated due to a dangerous toxic cloud stemming from a train derailment less than 10 miles south of the area. I didn't know what hazardous chemicals were swirling around in that cloud at the time. Nobody did. And that's what made it so terrifying. We learned later that it was dangerous. The train cars that fell into the river were carrying a liquid mixture containing benzene. The flammable liquid, which creates a vapor heavier than air, was responsible for the creation of the low-lying hazardous cloud. According to the Department of Health and Human Services, benzene exposure is known to cause cancer in humans. So, there we were, the communities of Duluth and Superior, sitting beneath a carcinogenic cloud, trying not to breathe it in. To better clarify my memories, I figured I'd call my mom.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Do you remember the benzene oil spill of 1992?
In Gary?
Superior?
Yeah, Gary, I thought it was. No, Superior, yeah.
Do you remember where you were?
Where I was home. I had to go pick up you and Carl. We got out of school.
Did we?
Oh, yeah.
I remember hiding in the basement.
Well, you couldn't breathe it in. We probably were.
For another perspective, I called my older brother.
Do you remember the benzene oil spill of 1992?
I think I do, actually. Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I remember having to go into the basement in the Hermantown house.
Yeah, I remember it.
And there was a huge cloud.
Yeah, I remember seeing the cloud.
It was terrifying.
I remember seeing the cloud. I remember thinking about it over the years.
So here's what happened. In the early morning hours of June 30th, 1992, Duluth's newly minted police chief, Scott Lyons, answered a phone call that would turn an otherwise pleasant summer day into a nightmare. In the minutes before 3 a.m. on June 30th, 1992, as the Northland slept, a freight train carrying hazardous materials just south of Superior derailed, sending train cars carrying aromatic chemicals sailing 71 feet into the waters of the Nemadji River. The result was catastrophic. The chemical cocktail created an orange-colored vapor cloud, as I mentioned, measuring 20 miles long and 5 miles wide, and it parked itself over the populated area of Superior and neighboring Duluth.
We have no idea what's in that cloud, and so that was our biggest concern. Was what is this? Is this a killer cloud? Is it nothing? And leading, the biggest problem was we didn't know what was in that rail car.
While Lyons and his crew were scrambling to figure out what chemicals the rail cars were carrying, and therefore what chemicals were swirling around in the sky, police officers attempting to alert residents began coming down with troubling symptoms. Some reported burning eyes, skin, and throats.
We know that when our officers were down on the end of Park Point, so the cloud was kind of at the end of Park Point, staying over that Superior entry. And so, but our officers were claiming that they were getting nauseous and sick, and something was wrong. That cloud, whatever was in it, was not good stuff.
They weren't the only ones. 17 people were treated that day at area hospitals. Meanwhile, near the site of the river, fish were dying and rising to the surface by the hundreds. As news of illnesses rolled in, and with no answers concerning the potential dangers the unknown chemicals posed on area residents, city officials in both Superior and Duluth ordered a mass evacuation. Nobody was allowed to enter the evacuated areas, creating an eerie ghost town underneath the low-hanging toxic cloud.
It was chaos. It just was chaos.
When law enforcement became aware of the train derailment, the answers regarding the contents of the train cars weren't immediately clear. They knew there were hazardous chemicals on board, but the specifics weren't readily available. For a brief time that morning, Lyons and his crew thought that Mother Nature was on their side. The wind had temporarily blown the cloud north over Lake Superior, essentially sweeping the problem away. Yet the wind switched, inviting the chemical cloud back to the Duluth and Superior areas, where it would hover for hours. With the train staff unable to answer questions, Lyons and his team went to the source, the manufacturing company that was transporting the product. Lyons told the Duluth News-Tribune in 2012 that his chief deputy, Bob Larson, made the call. While the company was at first reluctant to give answers as to the nature of the chemicals and the risk it posed on the tens of thousands exposed, Larson eventually got an answer out of him, and it wasn't good. The company's chief medical officer said that if his family was living in the area, he'd get them out immediately. And so began the evacuation. More than 50,000 residents were evacuated from their homes. By some estimates, that number was closer to 80,000. School activities and daycares released children to their families. Residents living above the hill in Duluth were told to shut their windows and stay inside. Area hospitals were evacuated. Jail inmates were transported to areas outside of Duluth. Nursing home residents were also ushered out.
You think it's not that big a deal, and then you have to realize the type of people you have to move, Right. You got St. Anne's home, and you got Lakeshore home, and all of a sudden they can't be in those homes because that cloud's coming right at them. So,
as Lyons stated many times, it was chaos. While Lyons is quick to point out the day was a swirl of worry and chaos, he also points to the day as one of the most inspiring and rewarding of his career. Simply put, people worked together, swiftly, to get people to safety.
I still look upon that as one of the neatest things to have been a part of because so many people jumped in.
While criticism came later, Lyons said he witnessed community organizations, businesses, and residents come together to save one another from a perceived dangerous threat. From 30 years in the future, that type of cooperation, without immediate disagreement and controversy, can be rare. Differing opinions on the severity of the situation and how it could be handled are often at play. Yet, on that summer day, people got to work to do what they felt was right in the circumstances. While the vast majority of residents in the evacuation zones quickly made their way out of the city, there were some who stayed behind to take advantage of the silence. Lyons said that was one aspect of the benzene oil spill day that is often forgotten. Despite the perceived threat and the mass evacuation at play, law enforcement officers did still have to provide policing in the danger zones.
We're in that whole law enforcement mode, too, of protecting the city. And so some people that didn't want to leave weren't, in our estimation, just people that just weren't going to leave. They were thinking, well, this looks like an opportunity for us. So
that afternoon, as the cloud dissipated, residents drove back into the evacuated areas. Those living on the outskirts of the evacuation zone came up from their hiding places, in my case, the basement, and opened their windows. While the hospital did see patients who were impacted by the toxic cloud, the day of chaos had come to a close with no fatalities. The long-lasting effects, however, wouldn't be fully known until years later. Following the incident, it was determined that a faulty rail line was responsible for the benzene oil spill. A 2012 article in the Duluth News-Tribune states that the rail line had been inspected 1 month before the accident, a procedure that was conducted by Burlington Northern inspectors. The company's inspectors did find a crack in the rails, but they claimed that it was safe by Federal Railroad Administration rules. An ultrasound conducted by Burlington Northern experts revealed nothing. Yet, as the train rolled down the tracks in the early hours of June 30th, 1992, those working on the rail cars felt the train derail. The National Transportation Safety Board evaluated the rail line following the incident and determined that the damage occurred inside the steel. The cracks on the surface, observed by inspectors, had interfered with the ultrasound images. The rest, as they say, is history. In the months following the benzene oil spill, Superior Attorney Toby Markovich filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of those impacted by the oil spill in the Douglas County area. That's the county Superior is located. The railroad company settled at that time for $2.5 million. At the end of the claim period, $500,000 remained on the table. Dale Bartz was a railroad bridge inspector who responded to the spill site days after the train went into the river. Bartz notes that he wasn't provided with protective equipment. By 2006, he was diagnosed with stage 3 multiple myeloma, a condition his doctor at the time claimed could have been caused by exposure to the chemicals at the spill site. In 2013, Bartz had requested $750,000 from the class action lawsuit unclaimed funds. Ultimately, a judge denied his claim. The $500,000 had grown through investments to $1.3 million and was ultimately split among the Duluth-Superior Area Community Foundation, University of Wisconsin-Superior, and Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College, located in Superior. While Bartz wasn't able to collect, his lawsuit did bring up an important question. What kind of damage did exposure to the spill site yield long-term? And were there long-term consequences for those in the Duluth-Superior area who were exposed to the chemical cloud? To this day, it's difficult to say. Prolonged exposure to benzene is considered a cause of cancer in humans, according to the Department of Health and Human Services. The question, though, is whether short-term exposure to high amounts of benzene yields the same consequences. Whatever the answer, Lyons says he believes city officials in Superior and Duluth did the right thing that day. Without sufficient information regarding the contents of the train car and chemical cloud, they had to assume the worst and keep their residents from succumbing to the mysterious and potentially dangerous giant cloud. You've been listening to The Vault, a Forum Communications podcast covering true crime and general intrigue from the Upper Midwest. Unlock more cold cases and crimes from the past at inforum.news/try. Get your first 3 months of unlimited access to our entire news network for only 99 cents a month. Visit inforum.news/try to take advantage of this deal. Forum Communications is proud to be part of the Trust Project. Learn more at thetrustproject.org.